Is CELTA teacher training worth doing if you are non-native speaker? So today I've prepared for you answers to a few questions that I ask myself and probably most of non-native speakers ask themselves before doing CELTA. So hi, my name is Marta. Welcome to How to Teach. The big question of today's video is if CELTA teacher training is worth doing if you are non-native speaker. The answer is yes, it is. But bear with me, that's not the end of the video. Before I clarify why I think it is worth doing, I would like you to do one thing now. So take a piece of paper and think about why you want to do CELTA. Think about the following questions. Why do you want to take CELTA? Is it because you want to teach abroad, perhaps in an English-speaking country? Do you need that to teach in your own country? Are you planning to teach in language schools and private institutions or rather state schools? What is the next step you want to do when you finish CELTA? Maybe there is a different, cheaper course you could do. And what are your biggest fears about CELTA? Think about these questions now. So the reason I wanted you to take a few minutes and think about them, why you actually want to do CELTA is because CELTA is a big investment, and in order to avoid disappointment, it is better to think about it, to think it through beforehand to avoid any sort of disappointment. And if you plan it well, it will actually boost your professional career very quickly. So coming back to this question, is CELTA worth doing? The answer is yes. Whether you are at the beginning of your professional career, whether you have got a few experience of teaching, or you are an experienced teacher, it is still worth doing. Before doing CELTA, I would have a number of years of teaching experience, and I still found it extremely useful, and it still helped me in my professional career enormously. CELTA is a highly practical course. It is 120 hours plus 6 hours of teaching. It's observation. You'll be sleep deprived. You'll definitely have loads of things to do, especially if you're doing it full time. But it's definitely worth it. At the end of the course, you've got a pretty cool achievement, especially if you are a non-native speaker, and you've got pretty amazing qualifications as well. But it is hard work. So why I think CELTA is important for non-native speakers. So let me just tell you my story. Each story is different, but from my perspective, it was actually very useful, and I basically needed CELTA. So I really wanted to work during summer schools in England, and all of the schools, they required CELTA. I already had, BA and MA, but still I didn't have CELTA. So that was the reason why I applied for this course. Straight after doing CELTA, I immediately got a job, at the first school I applied, at the first job I applied for. So this actually, it was a very useful certificate for me. I only had work, from September to June during a school year, but I really wanted to do something during summer holidays, and that was the reason why I applied for CELTA. The next question is CELTA only for native speakers? Well, definitely not. I'm a non-native speaker and I did CELTA and I was fine. So, and as clearly stated on the website, near native speakers allowed. Sounds a bit scary? Well, not really. Just make sure you've got a lot of speaking practice before applying for CELTA, because you will have to go through an interview. So make sure that, if fluency and speaking is not your strongest point, just make sure you've got a lot of speaking practice, okay? Some warm up before actually going through the whole interview. Okay, the next question, will you survive? Yes, definitely. Yes, you will. And you will shine. Do you know why you will shine? Well, non-native speakers, we are really good at one part, we are superior when it comes to one part of English language teaching, which is grammar. Exactly. Grammar is our really strong point. The knowledge of grammar rules will actually help us shine during different, teacher training courses. And that was it. Basically, this is what happened in my case. So I remember applying for CELTA, and we actually, during our course on the first day, I remember our teacher trainer, there were 3 of us, and we were non-native speakers, and she pointed out, of course, the lexical knowledge of native speakers, which is, well, obviously you can't argue with that. But then she pointed out that, well, she mentioned 3 grammar queen in a group, and people just started looking around thinking, who are these 3 grammar queens? And then she said, well, 3 girls. So, and it turned out that yes, we were, we know grammar, because why do we know grammar? We had to go through the same process of learning the language as the students that we are actually teaching at the moment. So we know all the tenses, we know reported speech, we know passive voice, we know wishes, we know conditionals, we know all the bits and pieces when it comes to grammar rules, and we know how to teach them. That's the most important thing about it. So you will definitely shine. And what was even more incredible about the whole teacher training course was that we collaborated really well. So non-native speakers, we as non-native speakers, we were helping native speakers with grammar and kind of refreshing their grammar knowledge, whereas they were helping us in lexical activities and making sure that we would pronounce words correctly. So it was a massive collaboration, which was even more inspiring. So when it comes to lexis, just make sure that you know how to pronounce, you know the meaning, you know the word formation of every word that you're going to teach your students. This is incredibly important. So when you've got lesson observations, make sure you go through all of the words. Make sure you double check how to pronounce them. Ask the other teacher trainees how to pronounce the words. So the next question is how to make it useful. So CELTA entitles you to work at different language schools around the world. But there is a slight but in this in this sentence. So well, we still are non-native speakers. There are different regulations, different policies of school themselves, of different countries. So you need to be aware of that, okay? You can't give up just because you are non-native speakers, okay? Just hang in there and just make sure that just reapply for different jobs, and finally you will get them. But in order to be an asset for your employer, just make sure you've got a lot of experience, practice, even after doing CELTA. So for instance, my first job at a language school, I intentionally chose an English speaking country as the place to work, because I really wanted to have an experience of teaching English in an English setting in an English speaking country. So that's why I chose England as my first summer job. And it gave me so much self-confidence in applying for other jobs and eventually going to work in international school. So here are a few tips. If you are anything like me, self-confidence is a tricky thing. So, although I would have had TEFL or MA and, years of experience of teaching, in non-English speaking country, still, before doing CELTA, I would have been wondering, right, am I actually able to teach in an English speaking country? Just alongside native speakers. There is a bit of a tricky thing there. I didn't feel that I was actually ready. So what I did, I really wanted to learn. What they say. You shouldn't be the wisest person in the room. There is no point of, sitting there anymore. right? You always, growth mindset there. So we need to try, and reach higher. So I really wanted to do CELTA in an English speaking country. I really wanted to give myself 4 weeks, almost 5 weeks of an intensive still language course for myself, teacher training for myself, living in an English speaking country. And that was the reason why I actually chose England. So I applied for CELTA in Oxford, and I spent there for 5 weeks, which was incredible experience for me, not only from the teacher point of view, but also from a person who had always been passionate about English speaking countries, because this was the language that I had studied. So I really wanted to see what it was like to live there for for a month, and I thought, right, so it would have helped me to kind of boost my self-confidence, and it actually did. It really helped me. So if you've got a chance to apply for CELTA in an English speaking country, do it. I'm sure it's worth it. You will feel so much more confident about your English level, about your English abilities, about your teaching abilities. So when it comes to CELTA, there are different options. You can take it online, you can do it full-time, you can do it part-time. I did it full-time for a few reasons. So the first one I mentioned, I really wanted to have this English teaching experience in an English speaking country, so this is the reason why I did it. And second of all, it was easy actually for me to take a month off and then actually do it part-time in my home country or online. It is expensive, it's a massive investment, so I really wanted to feel that actually it was worth it, and it was worth it. But it's entirely up to you. You might want to apply for CELTA in your in your home country, because then afterwards maybe you'll be able to to work at this language school, that at this language center that offered you this this teacher training. So just make sure before you apply, as I said at the beginning, just make sure you know why you want to do it. That's the most important question. So, and what to do next? Well, apply for a job. You can go to TEFL.com, for instance, and before summer, there are tons of different job offers. So they need plenty of people when it comes to, summer school. So apply, and don't be picky. As your first job, you want to get some experience. Think about where you want to go. What's the reason why you want to go there? And just apply. And then, the following year, you may become a director of studies. There's so many different options. You may love it, you may hate it, but then at least, you will know, the experience, and then you may, go into different direction. For instance, from one point to another, I started working in international schools, but that's a different story. However, there are so many different options. So just make sure you know why you want to do it. So how to apply for CELTA? So first of all, you need to go to Cambridge website. There's a link below, and go there. You can find the center that you want to apply for. First of all, you need to find a course. So you've got CELTA there, you've got CELTA full-time, part-time. Go there, then you're going to then you try to find the center that you want to apply for, and then you're sending your application. That's about it. You're waiting for the response, and then there is an interview. In my case, it was an online interview because at that time I was in Poland, but I had an interview with one of the teacher trainers. Actually, that was a director of studies in one of the language schools in Oxford. So that was an online interview. It literally lasted a few minutes, not longer. I was asked a few questions, mostly grammar ones. And if I think about it, the interview was actually plain sailing. So I'm not sure if this is the general experience. That was my experience. It was very nice and let's face it, easy. And the last question: is it stressful? Definitely yes, it is stressful. But you know what they say? Stressed is dessert backwards. So at the end of the course, there is a delicious dessert waiting for you. And it does not only boost your self-confidence, but gives you really useful qualifications that you can use, and it will help you in your professional development and in your career. Having said that, it's not like I am working for, I don't know, British Council and trying to sell you CELTA or something. This is my personal experience, and I think that the only thing I regret is that actually I hadn't I didn't do it earlier. I was just waiting so many years. I think the reason I'm discussing CELTA is not because I'm kind of a part of my marketing plan or something. No, it's just my experience. It just I think the only thing I regret is the fact that I didn't do it earlier. So I had been waiting so many years thinking that I wasn't good enough to do CELTA. I should have done it earlier. So that's why I'm sharing this video with you. It doesn't have to be CELTA, it can be a different teacher training course, but make sure, what I want to say, don't be afraid. We are not native speakers, but we are wonderful teachers. Okay? So don't be afraid. We are a true asset. We are as vulnerable as the students. We know what they go through. We've got this power. We know actually how to teach them because we went through the same thing as they are today, as they are going right now. So don't be afraid. Don't put it aside for later. Okay? If you feel that this is the way you want to go, just do it. Okay? Just apply for something. Just make sure you make this first step, and it's actually a milestone if you think about it. And it opens doors to so many different opportunities for you. And a few interesting tips. So if you want to read that in more detail, go to my website, How to Teach. There is reasons for doing CELTA for both non-native speakers and native speakers as well. I also have got different recommendations when it comes to methodology books, which I think that are some of them are brilliant if you are preparing for CELTA as well. So you can go there. I will also put the links to some of these books below. And one more thing, put some comments. So what's your experience of doing CELTA? You think of doing CELTA? Did you do it? How was it? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you use it? Was it useful for you? So I'd love to hear your opinions about your experience with doing, for instance, CELTA, or maybe other teacher training courses. There are different ones. There is a wide choice when it comes to different teacher training courses. So, and please, if you liked this video and you found it useful, give it a thumbs up, and see you next week. Bye bye. from what I know, language schools requirements are usually CELTA or DELTA, or maybe other teacher training certificate. When it comes to, public sector, such as universities, mainstream schools, international schools like I'm doing right now, well, the requirements may differ. So always double check before you actually, always double check what requirements you need before you apply for this course.